voice of free speech. The truth delivered. Common sense for the American people. Welcome to the Scott Jennings Show.
It's a pivotal day for Iran. We'll have the latest on talks between the Americans and the regime. Vice President J.D. Vance tackling fraud, starting with Minnesota. Mayor Mamdani says no charges for the mob that attacked the New York City police officers. And John James of Michigan joins the show. It is Thursday, February 26th. This is Common Sense for the American people. Scott Jennings is reporting to you from your nation's capital today. There were 3 hours of talks between U.S. and Iranian officials. These are indirect talks that have ended in Geneva today. The results of the talks are unclear. This is the third time they have spoken. And today's round seen as crucial to averting war in the Middle East, as President Trump has ordered a massive buildup of military firepower in the region. It's Witkoff and Kushner engaging in talks for the American side. The case for war revolves around a few issues: the Iranian regime's continued pursuit of nuclear weapons, the regime's buildup of intercontinental ballistic missiles, and the regime's mass murder of protesters in the streets. Now, of particular note, these ICBMs, these missiles, this is a major issue for the Israelis and also for the Americans, but will the Iranians give them up? We'll see, but if they will not, this is probably something the Allies cannot live with. There is some reporting out there this morning that the Americans want the Israelis to strike first if we are to go to war, and there is no deal to be had. We'll keep an eye on all of this today. And while this is going on, U.S. negotiators are meeting with Ukrainian officials today, discussing a, quote, prosperity package for the reconstruction of Ukraine. At the State of the Union on Tuesday, President Trump announced that Vice President J.D. Vance is spearheading a new fraud task force, and Vance has hit the ground running, tackling the issues in Minnesota. Here's the vice president making some news at cut number 3.
So we're announcing today that we have decided to temporarily halt certain amounts of Medicaid funding that are going to the state of Minnesota in order to ensure that the state of Minnesota takes its obligations seriously to be good stewards of the American people's tax money. Now, what is this going to mean? What this means is that, first of all, the providers on the ground in Minnesota have actually already been paid. The state has paid those providers the money. What we're doing is we are stopping the federal payments that will go to the state government until the state government takes its obligations seriously to stop the fraud that's being perpetrated against the American tax.
The amount of money in play here, nearly $260 million, so fairly substantial. And Vice President Vance is on the road today, speaking in Plover, Wisconsin, still banging this fraud drum. Here's the Vice President just a few minutes ago in cut number 9.
Now, I'm here to tell you that the job of your government is not to open your borders and allow fraudsters to come in and take advantage of you. The job of your government is to shut the border and shut off the fraud, and that's exactly what we're doing in the Trump administration.
Vice President Vance in Wisconsin today. New York City, did you see the video of the angry mob pelting police officers with snowballs? I'm sure you did. A few officers wound up in the hospital, some with face lacerations. Well, the mayor of New York City, Mamdani, says he doesn't want to see anyone charged for those assaults. Let's hear the mayor in cut number 5.
I've said that what I saw was a snowball fight. It should be treated accordingly. It was one that got out of hand, but that's what it was.
Snowball fight, Mr. Mayor? You watched that video. It looked like an ambush to me. Tell that to the cops who wound up in the hospital. This is the true colors of Mamdani here, allowing the police to be assaulted on the streets of New York City, and this new mayor looks the other way. And in breaking news, apparently President Trump is meeting with Mamdani today down in Washington, D.C. We'll keep an eye on that. Epstein news. For the next 2 days, members of the House Oversight Committee will be in Chappaqua, New York, taking depositions from the Clintons in this Epstein investigation. Hillary Clinton goes today. Bill Clinton is deposed tomorrow. And this detail just into the show, Hillary Clinton told House investigators that she does not recall ever encountering Jeffrey Epstein personally. And in this late-breaking detail, just into the show, Hillary Clinton has apparently paused the deposition. An unauthorized photo of Clinton was taken and distributed online. And so apparently the deposition has come to a halt over this distribution of this photo. We'll see if they get back to it this afternoon. Let's go out to Los Angeles. Everyone there talking about the FBI raid on the superintendent of schools. This happened yesterday at the home of Superintendent Alberto Carvajalo. The Board of Education in L.A. has responded by calling an immediate executive session to discuss Carvajalo's employment status as the district cooperates with this federal investigation. This happened at his home and his office in L.A. and a third location in southwest Florida, near where Carvajalo previously served as superintendent of the Miami-Dade Public Schools, was also searched. This is according to the FBI down in Miami. This appears to be a wide, sprawling investigation. Now, Carvajalo has led the L.A. school system, the nation's second largest, since 2022. He is a prominent figure in education circles. He's known for his personal story as someone who came to the United States as an undocumented immigrant as a 17-year-old. He has been vocally opposed to aggressive federal immigration enforcement near the schools. Now, the feds are being rather tight-lipped about the nature of the investigation, but we'll keep an eye on it for you. Another example, by the way, of Democrats and their allegiance to illegal aliens, this time in Oregon, where the state Senate held a vote yesterday on whether the state should notify federal authorities if an illegal immigrant is convicted of murder, rape, or another felony. The question was, should Oregon tell the federal government before that person is released from jail so they can be picked up and deported? Simple question. All 18 Senate Democrats in the Oregon legislature voted no. 11 Republicans voted yes, so the motion failed, because it seems Democrats want violent illegal aliens released into Oregon's communities instead of released into federal custody. Now, ICE does remain on the job in cities around the country despite this Democratic opposition. Down in New Orleans, here are the January statistics. These just came out from the federal government. This is just in the city of New Orleans. ICE arrested 2,714 criminals, including 25 gang members, and incredibly, in one city, 10,886 illegal aliens were deported. Nearly 11,000 deportations in one American city alone. Just incredible. And Democrats, it seems, may be whistling past the graveyard on the politics of the immigration issue. It remains a loser for their party. Let's look at the latest data. Here's CNN's polling director, Harry Enton, in cut number 4.
This, I think, is so important to note. After all the events in Los Angeles, after all the events in Minneapolis, after all the events of the last year on immigration, can Democrats actually take advantage on this issue? And a look at the polling suggests actually no. They're in a worse position than they were at this point during Donald Trump's first term. Take a look here. Trust which party more on immigration. In 2018, Democrats had an edge of about 6 points. You come over to this side of the screen now, look at that. Republicans are the ones who actually have an edge on immigration. So this whole idea that Democrats are going to be able to take advantage of the immigration group, of the immigration issue, actually doesn't bear itself out in the polling, despite everything that's been going on.
Friend of the show, Harry Enton from CNN, going over the latest immigration polling. You should remember that, by the way, the next time a Democratic pundit or a media person comes on your television screen and tells you that Democrats are somehow retaking control of the immigration debate. According to the latest data, they most certainly are not. Let's get some news about aches and pains, folks. This coming in from a listener in Washington. His name is Keith, an extremely active guy. Keith is former college athlete, a martial arts instructor, teaching multiple classes a day. But over time, his body started feeling worn down, and he decided to try Relief Factor. And now he tells us in his personal testimonial, it's coming in from a real customer, His knee pain nearly disappeared. His neck pain dropped significantly. And he was able to keep training, in fact, and he ultimately earned his black belt. This is all thanks to Relief Factor. I can tell you, we're trying it out in the Jennings household. My dad, by the way, would tell you the same thing that Keith would tell you. An active guy, body wears down, tries Relief Factor, and all of a sudden, he is able to get back to the things that he wants to do. For my dad, retired down in Florida right now, this includes playing a lot of golf. If you would like to move easier, if you would like to have a more active lifestyle that is pain-free, my recommendation, try the Relief Factor 3-week quick start. See how it works for you. Call 1-800-4RELIEF or visit relieffactor.com and let's see if we can get you out of pain. When we come back, a spokesperson from the White House joins us to talk about some of the personal stories the president highlighted on Tuesday night. It's Salem Radio. Scott Jennings is here. Stay with us. Hey, it's Scott. I want to talk to you about our friends at Balance of Nature. You can find them, by the way, at balanceofnature.com. They have this thing called the Balance of Nature Whole Health System. These supplements are perfect for a resolution in the new year. It's kind of tough to stick with New Year's resolutions, and that's why Balance of Nature's Whole Health System supplements are one of the easiest ways to do it. They're very versatile. You do 2 scoops of fiber and spice and mix it easily into drinks, and it adds a warm, aromatic depth. You can also open 3 of your fruit supplements and mix the powder into a smoothie, or sprinkle 3 of the veggie supplements over one of the savory dishes that you're having for dinner. It's called Balance of Nature's Whole Health System. These supplements include 47 ingredients of 100% whole fruits, vegetables, spices, and fibers, perfect for your daily routine. 50% off if you do it now for 1 year when you subscribe to the Whole Health System from our friends at Balance of Nature. Get it at balanceofnature.com.
One man standing tall against the leftist mob. Here's Scott Jennings.
It is Thursday, February 26th. Common sense for the American people. Scott Jennings in your nation's capital today. And this afternoon at 4 Eastern, I'll be heading over to CNN and we'll participate in the conversation there on our show, The Arena with Casey Hunt. And then I'm going to hop up to New York City this evening, and I'll be back at the debating table with Abby Phillip on Newsnight at 10 o'clock Eastern tonight, and we'll try to share those clips on social media as well. I do want to remind you all that we do have this amazing Gulf of America cruise happening in November of 2026. I'll be there. Mike Gallagher is going. And we want you to join us. If you'd like to join us on this 1-week cruise, luxury ship, amazing destinations, great food, great conversation. If you'd like to join us, and we want you to be there, you can do it by booking your cabin today. Text the word cruise to 94878 or visit scottjenningsshow.com and click on the Gulf of America cruise banner. Would love to see you out there in November as we take this amazing journey. Now, during Tuesday night's State of the Union address, President Trump spent much of the night highlighting his policy successes, and he did it by using examples of real people to make the case. There were angel families there who've lost loved ones to violent illegal aliens. There were families there that can now afford IVF treatment because of the Trump RX website. And there were stories of heroes who are protecting our streets and our country. To talk about some of these incredible stories the president highlighted is White House Deputy Press Secretary Anna Kelly. Anna, welcome into the Scott Jennings Show.
Thanks so much. Great to be here.
Yeah, Anna, thank you for your time today. Take us through some of these individuals. We saw them on the screen. I'm sort of curious, how do you pick these people? And tell us about a few of them.
Yes, of course. Well, there's a number of ways that, that we're able to find these individuals. Of course, we have a great White House Correspondents Office. Those folks are often taking in letters with many, many Americans every single day who are writing in to talk about the success of the president's policies. And as you mentioned, of course, this was a speech talking about some of the successes over the past year, talking about cooling inflation, expanding access to IVF, lowering prescription drug costs, securing the border, deporting migrant criminals, among other things. But yes, he also highlighted so many of these everyday Americans who are not only benefiting from his past policies, but also highlighting many stories that unfortunately those Democrats in Congress failed to talk about and failed to stand up for. As you mentioned, angel moms who tragically lost their loved ones, their children, at the due to Joe Biden's open border, ushering in 20+ million illegal criminals. Democrats refused to stand for them and honor their stories. The mother of Irina Zarutska, who tragically was killed by a repeat offender in North Carolina, and then some more positive stories as well. Medal of Honor recipients, one who was turning 100, bravely served our country in World War II, freeing a internment camp in the Philippines. Another one who was injured in the operation that executed the arrest of narco-terrorist Nicolas Maduro. And so I think there was a really incredible mix of stories that this president highlighted, talking about all of the important policies that he's been talking about ever since the campaign trail, and also talking about where we're headed and where we need to be as a country in order to truly make our America great again.
Anna, we've got about 30 seconds here. Does the president, in the aftermath of the speech, does he consider the night to have been a success? I'll tell you, every Republican I've spoken to is thrilled with what the president did.
Well, I was tuning in actually to CNN, Scott, and I even Abby Phillip, your good friend, seemed to have trouble finding negative things to say about it. So I think the president, the White House, all feel like it was a success. Of course, he was talking about an agenda that he was overwhelmingly elected to implement. And it's truly hard, Scott, to deny the common sense policies that this president was talking about, ending the gender mutilation of children, again, securing the border, preventing violent criminals from entering our country and wreaking more havoc. This was an extremely common sense speech, and so I think it was hard for anyone truly to really disagree with that. And so I think the president is pleased, we're all pleased, and really proud of the amazing speech that he was able to execute.
That's Anna Kelly, Deputy White House Press Secretary. Anna, thanks for coming on. We're going to take a break. When we come back, John James from Michigan is here. We'll check in with him on Salem. It's Scott Jennings. Stay with us.
You've heard the narratives. Now get the truth. It's the Scott Jennings Show.
It is Thursday, February 26th. Scott Jennings here, Common Sense for the American People. As you may know, I was in Michigan on Tuesday night. I watched the president's State of the Union address with 10 Michigan voters in Saginaw, Michigan. Michigan is one of the most important swing states and one of the most important states in the November 2026 election coming up. There's a Senate race going on there, and there's also a major governor's race going on there. And to that end, we have a candidate for governor joining us today, Congressman John James, coming back to the Scott Jennings Show. Mr. James, welcome back, sir. Glad for your time today.
Hey, Scott. Thanks for having me back on.
Yeah, it was fun to be up in Michigan this week, and obviously you're in one of those states. It's swingy, little purple, sometimes a little blue, sometimes a little red, but you're in the middle of a governor's race there. And in fact, you are the leading candidate for governor right now. I was just reviewing the latest polling. According to Real Clear Politics, looking at the polling averages, you lead a three-way race, and I want to talk to listeners about this. It's interesting. You're at 36%. There's a Democrat named Jocelyn Benson who's at 32.5%, and an independent candidate named Mike Dugan who is at 20.5%. So three candidates, all in double digits, but you're the leader. Tell us a little bit about the dynamics of this three-way race.
Sure. We know that Michigan is going to be the center of the universe in 2026. We have an open gubernatorial seat. We have an open Senate seat. We have 4 congressional seats up for grabs. We have a state legislature up for grabs. We have Secretary of State and Attorney General. All this stands to mean is we know that from last cycle and from this one, a strong top of ticket benefits not just Michigan Republicans, but it benefits the entire United States of America. When you look at what happened in Pennsylvania and Arizona, with weak or toxic tops of tickets in the last midterm, we ended up losing multiple Senate seats and multiple House seats that we should have kept. If not for Lee Zeldin running in a strong blue state, running strong in a blue state, pulling 6 Republicans across the finish line, 5 in districts that Biden won, the 118th, or the last Congress, would not have had a Republican majority in the House. And what would that have meant? Well, that would have meant D.C. would be a state right now. That would have meant that Joe Biden would have been able to stuff the Supreme Court with activists that could repeal everything that we did. And then also, we would have had open borders and amnesty. It's very important to have a strong top of ticket in states like Michigan, a place where President Trump has won at least twice. and a state that we have a remarkable opportunity to show what works and to make sure that we have someone watching the till, cutting fraud, making sure we ensure election integrity going into the presidential in 2028.
Yeah, you were in the audience, obviously, for the State of the Union on Tuesday. Fraud was a topic there, and President Trump put Vice President Vance in charge of a federal fraud task force. What do you make of that? He made some announcements about what they're doing in Minnesota. You know, based on your perch in Congress right now, is it your view that we're going to see a lot of fraud uncovered in a lot of blue states and blue cities across America?
Well, I'll tell you what, as governor, this is the first and only time I will say that I will help a Buckeye in Michigan. But J.D. Vance, as the fraud czar, and the fact that Gretchen Whitmer is spending $20 billion more now than she spent 6 years ago during the pandemic, where's that money going? We don't know where it's going. You look at what happened in Minnesota under Tim Walz. The state of Minnesota is 50% of our population and 60% of our budget. And they were able to find $9 billion. But just in the state of Michigan, we found hundreds of millions in SNAP fraud, hundreds of millions in healthcare, Medicaid fraud, and $8.5 billion in unemployment fraud. This is just scratching the surface. And so working with folks like Vice President Vance, working with folks and being fully transparent, we are going to find where that money is going. And if somebody is found to break the law, they're going to jail. I believe that you have these tax and spend Democrats that are continuing to increase our taxes, continuing to increase our rates. And in the state of Michigan, we have everything that we need. We have the best talent. We have the best natural resources. We have the best businesses, but we lack the leadership. We need to get at the fraud. We need to hold the criminals accountable. We need to get the government out of the way, instill local control, and make sure that we make Michigan great again.
Okay, State of the Union, you were there. Last segment, we heard from someone from the White House who was talking about some of the guests that the president brought in to highlight certain policies. Who did you take with you to the State of the Union this year?
Well, I took my a constituent who's hardworking. She has been there for me since the very, very beginning, and she's actually my favorite constituent, my wife. I think that being able to share that experience with my wife, somebody who's been there for me, it was very important for her to see that and to acknowledge that all of us, especially in a time like that, we owe everything to our family. The president acknowledged his wonderful wife there, and I thought it was phenomenal. But right now, you're looking at pictures, scenes from the State of the Union that I think President Trump's leadership shone through. President Trump is a unifier, despite the fact that the lying fake news media will tell you the opposite. You see these heartwarming pictures of people who are embracing, people who are clapping. You see these heartwarming pictures of heroes, people who've persevered, people who've shown what the American condition is. And many of them who President Trump was highlighting, they weren't born in this country. They're people who we were welcomed in, who assimilated, people who've had their loved ones murdered. And when President Trump took the opportunity to reach across the aisle, to give everyone, regardless of party, the opportunity to stand in solidarity with the American people, asking, do you stand with the American people or do you stand with the illegal immigrants who broke our laws? Democrats did nothing. And I think right then that was the microcosm that captured the entire scene in this state of United States of America. Democrats stand for nothing. They didn't stand in that chamber that day, and they do not stand for the American people in each and every day since then and afterward. And so now we have the remarkable opportunity to stand for the American people. And President Trump gave us the opportunity to see that. It was laid bare. And now we have the opportunity to go in and show people who really stands for them. And I believe it's conservatives across the country.
Yeah, truly a stunning moment when Democrats wouldn't stand up and affirm that their highest duty is to protect the American people. I suspect we're going to see that in campaign ads across the country. Maybe we'll even see a few of those in Michigan, because I just, I would call it an 80-20 issue, but I think it's a 100-0 issue. I think most Americans would think your highest duty as an elected official is to American citizens. The president talked a little bit about his administration's effort to stop this public funding of all of this transgender mutilation of children, this surgery going on minors. In fact, he also had someone in the audience who had undergone, every time I hear the story, this crazy situation where the school tried to transition the girl, and they didn't tell the parents, and then she was taken away from the parents, and they had to try to use the proper pronouns to get her back. It was a crazy story. I mean, the girl was ultimately rescued, and her life, I think, is going to turn out okay, but that's not true for everybody. I'm going to connect this to Michigan. This just into the show, Governor Whitmer is apparently vowing to block any legislation targeting, she says, the LGBTQ community, directly challenging President Trump's State of the Union call to ban minors' gender transitions without parental consent. Do you care to comment on the governor here taking on the president over, these childhood transition surgeries? I mean, Congressman, most of the major medical associations are even now saying we got to put a stop to this.
Yeah, so we heard no kings from Democrats, but apparently queens are okay. Apparently no one's above the law until you don't agree with the law and you're a Democrat and you can just ignore that. I believe very, very firmly, and we have constitutional precedent that establishes that our rights are endowed to us by our Creator and they're guaranteed by the government. The very first relationship that the good Lord established was a relationship between himself and man. The second was between man and woman. The third was between parents and children. Scott, hear me clearly. Children cannot consent. 2, parents have a right to know. And 3, if adults cannot confront adults or approach adults about sex at work, then why is it that it's okay for Gretchen Whitmer to say that it's okay for adults to approach children about sex at school? We need to protect the innocence of children, which is why I released my parental Bill of Rights in the state of Michigan to reaffirm that the government's role is essentially to respect the relationship and to protect the relationship between parents and children. And under no circumstances do state laws or anything trump, frankly, constitutional law, common sense, and natural order. I absolutely will protect every person, man, woman, boy, and girl. But above all, nobody is in a better position to protect our children than their parents themselves. I will stand with parents. I will stand with children and making sure they get the help that they require. But under no circumstances should we be putting our children in situations where they can be targeted by predators or exploited by people who would use this for their political gain.
You were in the room for the State of the Union. The president talked a lot about the economy, talked a lot about his tax cuts, which you voted for last summer in the working family tax cuts bill, the one big beautiful bill. Did you hear enough from the president? And give us a little update from Michigan. How are the new policies, this transition from the horrible Biden economy to the new Trump plan? How is it working out for Michigan, in your opinion?
Well, the best thing that I heard out of President Trump, and there were a lot of great things. I'm a little bit biased, but I actually have a bill that I'm working through in Congress. Patients deserve price tags, which is going to increase transparency, which is going to hold hospitals and insurance companies accountable for their astronomical prices and the fact that they cover these things up. And it's going to do a couple of things. It's going to give patients the control of what they do with their money and make the decisions about what they do with their lives. This is going to lower healthcare debt. This is going to increase quality of care. This is going to decrease prices. And it's going to hold these multi-billion-dollar conglomerates accountable for what they say they're going to do and hopefully move toward a healthier society. And President Trump talked about price transparency in his State of the Union address. And I think that's just so important. I'm going to be working with my colleagues in Congress to get that done. And pushing that forward as well in Michigan will be increasingly important because healthcare costs are something that another Democrat lie when Obama got out there and said, if you like your doctor, you can keep him. If you like your healthcare, you can keep it. And that ended up being the biggest lie of 2012. Well, we can do better, and we will do better. We've already cut fraud, waste, and abuse where criminals essentially were stealing money from the sickest and neediest Americans, folks who were struggling. These are programs that were meant for poor people and for sick people. And by cutting fraud, waste, and abuse, we're guaranteeing Medicaid, we're guaranteeing Medicare, we're guaranteeing Social Security and SNAP. We're guaranteeing those benefits for Americans who need them the most.
That's Congressman John James of Michigan, the leading candidate for governor of Michigan, according to the latest polling averages. Congressman, we'll have you back. We're paying close attention to Michigan this year. Thanks for your time today. We will take a break. When we come back, I've got somebody who signed up to be a snow shoveler in New York. We'll hear about that next. You know something? Universities are kind of a bad deal. 6 figures of debt for a bachelor's degree that signals less every year. 4 years spent navigating ideological rules instead of learning how to think. Grades inflated, standards lowered, dissent punished. We call it higher education, but it's mostly expensive daycare with a credential attached. The University of Austin, also known as UATX, is different, however. Admissions at UATX are based on test scores alone. No essays, no resumes. Nobody cares who your parents know. If you're smart enough, you're in. UATX students turned down UChicago and fled Barnard to complete a demanding great books core, including Aristotle, Shakespeare, de Tocqueville, alongside real math, science, economics, and AI. Classes are small, professors actually know your name, grades aren't padded, excellence is measured and rewarded. From day one, students work directly with top founders, investors, and institutions, building companies, doing serious research, and landing real internships. And here's the part that changes everything. There is no tuition. Thanks to private donors, every UATX student graduates debt-free. You're free to take risks, free to start companies, and free to build a life instead of paying off loans. If you want an empty credential, look elsewhere. If you want a serious education that actually prepares you to lead, apply to the University of Austin. Visit uaustin.org. That's uaustin.org.
When he's not in the Oval Office or owning the libs on CNN, he's here with us. It's the Scott Jennings Show.
Thursday, February 26th, Common Sense for the American People, home stretch of the first hour here. So this week, New York City Mayor Mamdani put out a call for New Yorkers to come help shovel snow in the next big snow blizzard they had. The program seemed relatively mundane until folks began reading the fine print. Anyone wanting to shovel snow had to show up with 2 forms of ID. It seems you need more ID to shovel snow than you do to vote, according to some Democrats. After hearing about all of this, our next guest decided he should put on his snow gear and see what the hype was all about. Josh Code is the assistant editor of the Free Press, here to discuss the snow removal efforts in New York City. Josh, welcome to the show. Tell us, what was it like to sign up to be one of Mamdani's citizen snow shovelers?
Scott, thank you so much for having me. And the experience was what I can only describe as a bizarre yet heartwarming journey through the city bureaucracy. I was one of the thousands of snow shovelers who showed up eager to serve on Tuesday, the day after we received 16 inches of snow. And I showed up bright and early around 8:30 a.m. I had my 2 forms of ID and my social security card. And I wondered, because the website originally said that you needed 2 small passport photos, that I would maybe have to go get those. But the Department of Sanitation press guy told me, no, we've waived the requirement for the photos. And Mamdani himself he said, only bring 2 forms of ID and you'll get paid. So I thought I was all good. And I waited around for about half an hour. I was one of the first guys there. I was ready to go. There was about a couple dozen other guys there with me. And I give my paperwork to one of the workers, and she says, oh, no, we need those photos. And so I basically went on this wild goose chase where I went to a CVS, another CVS, got my photos, brought them back, waited for another hour. And by the time I touched a shovel, I had been there waiting or running around for 2 hours. Or no, it was actually 3 hours, my mistake. But I got out there and I shoveled. It was a good crew of guys, lots of different people, not just the Mamdani supporters, but just people looking for a good job. You know, the market's not great out there, and people made some honest work that day. It was overall a great crew and a great time.
Did a bunch of people show up to do this? Was it a large group that came down to City Hall?
So it was a large group, and there were actually different sanitation outposts that you could show up at. I think that there were about a dozen or more. I went to the one that was closest to my apartment, and over the course of the day, they sent out multiple groups of guys to shovel. It was mostly guys. There were, I think, a handful of women I saw that day. But I would say that there were probably about 100 that went through the sanitation garage that I showed up at. And across the city that day, according to the Department of Sanitation, there were 1,700.
1,700 people. And what was the, remind me, what was the hourly rate for snow shoveling on the blizzard?
The hourly rate was $30 an hour starting. And after 40 hours of shoveling, you could make up to $45 an hour.
No kidding. Okay, so lots of people showed up. It's not an insignificant amount of money. Maybe, Josh, just give us your overall impression of dealing with the city bureaucracy. It sounds like they might have been a little unprepared for what they were trying to do. But after your experience, do you regard the thing as a positive experience, a negative experience? Kind of give us a distillation after you've had a couple of days to think about it.
Yeah, of course. I think it was at first frustrating to get the wrong information and then have to go out and get passport photos to work. But, you know, I've waited at the DMV. I've lived in New York City for 4 years, so I'm not naive about the bureaucracy it takes to run a place like this. And it was funny. There was even a sanitation worker who told me directly. She said, the mayor's not giving us the right info. And I think that, you know, in good faith, Mr. Mamdani wanted to create a program where people could help out their city, make some money. And at the end of the day, the people I met in the community of folks that I shoveled with, there was a great camaraderie in that. So I would say on balance, the program was a net good for the city. You'll see that a lot of the streets are pretty clear. I think part of that might be some above freezing temperatures. But I'm grateful for the people I met and the chance to serve my city. And I feel like I've earned the right to complain about the poop-covered sidewalks that have revealed themselves as the snow melted.
That voice you're hearing today, Josh Code. He is assistant editor of The Free Press, a website I consult almost every day to see what's going on in our world. Josh, thanks for the report on the Mamdani Snow Shoveling Corps in New York City. Appreciate your time.
Of course. Thank you, Scott. And you can read my full story at dfp.com.
All right, that's where you find it. Hour number 1 is in the books. Hour number 2 coming up. It's Scott Jennings on Salem. More breaking news after this.
If the leftists haven't had enough yet, there's more. This is the Scott Jennings Show.
All right, it's Thursday, February 26th. Common sense for the American people. Scott Jennings joining you here on the Salem Network, coast to coast. You can also pick up this show every single day. We have a podcast version of it. Pick that up on Apple or Spotify. And if you are so inclined to watch the video, you can go to snc.tv. Stands for Salem News Channel.tv. And we broadcast it live and archive it there every single day. So a lot of ways to get common sense for the American people. Let's do a quick check of the headlines here. The House Oversight Committee is deposing Hillary Clinton today in Chappaqua, New York. And they will depose former President Bill Clinton tomorrow. Now, the deposition was briefly paused when an unauthorized photo of Hillary Clinton was leaked out on the internet. So there was a stoppage, but I think they are back to talking to Hillary Clinton again. She said in her testimony today she does not personally have any recollection of ever having met Jeffrey Epstein. We'll see what Bill Clinton has to say tomorrow. U.S. mortgage rates are dropping. They are now below 6% for the first time since 2022. That's good news for home buyers. And NASA, unfortunately, is hauling their moon rocket off the launch pad to fix another malfunction. So it looks like we're going to have another delay in the Artemis moon mission that we've been talking about a little bit on the show. But hopefully NASA can get the rocket put back together and back up on the launch pad soon. And a quick update on a story that we brought you in the first hour. Well, we gave you some sound in the first hour. New York City Mayor Mamdani had said that he does not want to see anybody face any charges in this angry mob snowball assault on New York City police officers. He said, hey, it was just a snowball fight. Well, he and the police commissioner, Jessica Tisch, sorry, that is the police commissioner. They are having a disagreement about this, and it sounds like, and this is late breaking news, that the police, in fact, have arrested someone in the snowball assault in New York City. This is from the New York Times. Police arresting a 27-year-old man. The man's name is Guzman Coulibaly. He was taken into custody just a little while ago, actually, at his home in the Bronx. and he was charged with assaulting a police officer, obstructing governmental administration, and disorderly conduct. This is all according to the police. The police department is still seeking 3 other men, 2 of them believed to be between the ages of 18 and 20. They are also wanted for assault. This is interesting. This has sort of divided the people in New York City. Many people were outraged, and if you're watching the video feed, you see it right now, people pelting the police with these snowballs, hitting them in the face. People were outraged by this, and then the mayor said, hey, nobody should face charges, but at least one person is, and possibly a couple more. You're listening to The Scott Jennings Show on Salem. It's common sense for the American people. Special guest now coming on the show. He is the chairman of the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. You may have heard of this thing. It's called the CFTC. It is a federal agency. I ran into him at an event the other day, and I thought, we ought to have this guy on. He's got a really important job. And then lo and behold, the next day he had a piece in the Wall Street Journal about these prediction markets. And so this is a timely interview. His name is Mike Seelig. Mr. Chairman, welcome into the Scott Jennings Show.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. You are, in your role as chairman of the CFTC, heavily engaged in the regulation of what we call these prediction markets. Talk to us about the prediction markets. What are they, and what is the CFTC's job here in regulating the operation of these things? It's Polymarket, it's Kalshi. People are seeing these things all over the place now. Give us a little insight into it.
That's right. And after years of regulation by enforcement and prosecution of different industries and the targeting of different individuals, we're going back to common sense, very much in line with this radio program, and we're taking control over these markets. We're making sure that we're putting rules and regulations in place because these markets aren't new. They've been around for a long time. These are markets that allow individuals to place predictions on a wide range of events. Most recently, we've seen a lot of interest in the sports markets, but these really started out as political prediction markets. PredictIt was one of the very first where individuals could place a prediction on the winner of an election. And we saw it with 2024, we've seen it with many years, that the political polls oftentimes get it very wrong. And the prediction markets have gotten it completely right. And so it's very important that we protect these markets here in the United States. I wrote an op-ed that you mentioned a few weeks ago in the Wall Street Journal, and we also filed a amicus brief, Friends of the Court brief, in some litigation to make sure that we continue to defend our jurisdiction over these markets.
So the issue here is there have been individual states that are trying to regulate the prediction markets, and you're arguing in your Wall Street Journal piece that it is the federal government, that is the CFTC, that has the sole jurisdiction over these regulations. Is that correct?
That's right. And for very long, we've had this federal regime for derivatives contracts. And derivatives contracts can be on any underlying asset. They could be on an event like the outcome of a sports event. They can be on a political contract, the outcome of an election. They can be based on a securities price or wheat, corn, soybeans, really virtually anything. The definition of commodity under our statutes is very broad, so it's not limited just to agriculture or metals or something like this. And so we've had authority here since the 70s. We've been the exclusive regulator of derivatives markets, whether they're on political events, sports events, or anything else. And we have to defend that jurisdiction. When I came into office as chairman of the CFTC, I noticed that a number of the states were suing our registrants, and these lawsuits were very politically motivated. They were going after lawful businesses really for concern around gambling and a crossover of jurisdiction. And for very long, these states have had gambling regimes. Actually, at the turn of the century, gambling in grain was a national pastime. We've butted up against each other for very long, but really it's time to put these fights to bed. The CFTC is the exclusive regulator when it comes to derivatives instruments, and it's really important that we maintain that authority.
Chairman Seelig, talk to me a little bit about sports betting. We have seen, obviously, in the wake a few years ago of the Supreme Court ruling, an explosion in sports gambling. It is part of all sports coverage. You see it in the arenas. You see it in the stadiums. It's on virtually everyone's phone if they want it to be on there. What is the role of the CFTC in dealing with sports gambling? Should it be regulated by the CFTC? And maybe just give me a little bit of personal opinion here. Has this explosion in sports gambling led to some unforeseen problems in our society?
Well, the gambling aspect is really a state level issue, and we're not wading into that. I know there's a lot of similarity between certain of our products because they can get into virtually any underlying asset, including a sporting event. But these are different products. At the state level, you've got gambling associations and state level gaming regulators that are really focused on the entertainment business, on these casinos, making sure that they have certain protections and that they have certain licenses in place. So each state collects a lot of tax revenue from these operations. They allow them to effectively operate a quasi monopolistic type business where you need the license to operate within the state. It's an intra-state business, and you're placing bets with a bookie. It's not the same thing as what we regulate, which is a federal regime for derivatives contracts. So these are structured products with a sporting event as the underlying asset, but they can be entered into and exited out like any other contract, any other position on a derivatives exchange. They go through a clearinghouse, which means that the clearinghouse stands in between each purchaser and seller of a contract. And there's a lot of investor protection regulation. There's a lot of marketing requirements and so on and so forth. So this is a very robust regime. These are regulated the same way as any of our other exchanges. And it's a 500 trillion notional derivatives market in the U.S. This isn't really a small operation. We do a ton of surveillance and protecting of our markets. So what we're looking at is very different than what a state operation's looking at. We're really concerned about protecting our investors and making sure that these markets have integrity, that they're resilient, that they're vibrant. And we don't have a view on what products people should be trading. That's really been this paternalistic Democrat view of merit-based regulation where they've gone after the crypto industry because they don't like it. Yeah. They've debanked folk. They've gone after prediction markets. Really ahead of the 2024 election, there was this effort to ban these markets in the United States, and that got fought in the courts. And the courts decided this was arbitrary and capricious and that there's authority at the CFTC to regulate contracts in any type of commodity, including an election, including sports. And it's really important that we have this here in the United States. It's to me a national security concern. We've got to protect our information streams here in the U.S.
That's Chairman Mike Seelig, head of the CFTC in the federal government, explaining a kind of a complicated topic to us today. Appreciate your time. We'll check back with you on these issues as they develop. More to come after this. It's Scott Jennings here on Salem. Stay with us.
Ready for more common sense? Here's CNN's senior political commentator, New York Times best-selling author, and America's favorite political pundit, Scott Jennings.
Oh, we get cards and letters here at the Scott Jennings Show. The latest listener letter coming in from Tom in Texas. Tom tells us he's 85 years old and that pain was keeping him from riding his bike and flying small aircraft as a flight instructor. Interesting guy. But after taking Relief Factor, he says his lower back and hip pain are virtually gone. He also had some long-standing trigger finger issues that are improving. Another person sending us another letter saying Relief Factor made a difference in their life. I'll just tell you, we've been using Relief Factor for many months in the Jennings household. Several of us have been doing it. And my father, an active guy, he is religious about the Relief Factor. He takes it with him when he goes on trips. He's actually spending some time in Florida right now. He tells me every day he's getting up early, playing golf, and everything feels good. He attributes it to Relief Factor. It will help you get these everyday aches and pains under control. You can focus on what you want to do instead of the pain. That's really the benefit of Relief Factor. They have a thing called the 3-week quick start. My recommendation, see how it works for you. Here's how you do it. Call 1-800-4RELIEF or visit ReliefFactor.com. 1-800-4RELIEF or visit ReliefFactor.com. Let's see if we can get you out of pain using Relief Factor. All right, another story you may have seen on your television in the last few weeks. Students across the country staging walkouts from their school around these ICE protests. I'm sure a lot of people looked at this and said, well, maybe this is just kids being kids. As it turns out, there is something more sinister brewing underneath all of these protests. And there is a new piece in the Washington Free Beacon entitled Marxist-Leninist Group that organized anti-Israel encampments is now teaching high school students to walk out of class and protest ICE. Joining us to discuss this new reporting, our friend here at the show, Alana Goodman, a senior investigative reporter for the Washington Free Beacon. Alana, welcome back to the show. You're keeping tabs on all of this. What's the story today?
I am, yeah. Thanks for having me. So the Party for Socialism and Liberation, which is a Marxist-Leninist group, they've been a key player in the anti-Israel movement that we've seen on college campuses, helping to organize these illegal encampments. Well, now we found out that they're also behind these anti-ICE protests, particularly trying to organize high school students into coming out, staging walkouts at their schools, and doing other types of activism on this. So this is very interesting that they've kind of pivoted now from the Israel stuff to now focusing on ICE.
Well, it's been my contention that it's really all the same people and the same tactics, just wearing a different costume. You know, a while back it was Black Lives Matter, then it became Free Palestine. Now it's this anti-ICE protest. This group that you're talking about, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, the PSL, I thought it was interesting in your story. There's this person named Elias Rodriguez. If you remember that name, that was the sick murderer who killed that young couple at the Israeli embassy last year. He was part of this PSL group that is now trying to get these high school kids involved in these radical protests against ICE. Is that right?
Yes, he was. He was a former member at that time. And, you know, it is really disturbing that you have these groups like this that are holding webinars for these high school students. You know, a lot of high schoolers are still minors, telling them to knowingly do things that could get them suspended, potentially get them arrested, and really encouraging it. And encouraging them also to have conflict with their parents and their teachers. During one of these webinars, which was held last week, we got some footage from it that was obtained by the North American Values Institute, which is a watchdog group. They sent us some footage from this webinar. And the adult activists with the PSL were instructing the high school students on protest methods, telling them that, you know, if their parents opposed them participating in these walkouts, then they were supporting terrorists murdering people and that they were on the wrong side of history. So really trying to create this divide between children and their parents and children and their teachers, people who have these kids' best interests at heart. So, yeah, that is definitely a disturbing part of this.
One thing that has become clear, whether it's these protesters on the streets of Minneapolis, these kids who are being organized to walk out of their schools, based on your reporting, Alana, and reporting of others, it is very clear there are interests out there, well-funded and well-organized interests who are organizing people to try to destabilize communities and, frankly, I think destabilize the United States of America. Read all about it in the Washington Free Beacon. And reporter Alana Goodman, if you want to know what's going on in this space, Alana is one of the best. Thanks for joining us on the show today. We're going to take a break. When we come back, U.S. Senator John Cornyn of Texas has a blistering new ad out in the Senate down there. We'll take a look at it.
Quelling leftist arguments with truth and common sense. They hate that. This is the Scott Jennings Show.
All right, we need to talk about the state of Texas. We have a major Senate race going on there. Both parties are having primaries, getting a lot of attention. Early voting is underway. Election Day is coming up on March 3rd. Let's start with the Democratic side. The fight is between Jasmine Crockett, a member of the House, and James Tallarico. Crockett appears to be the candidate of the grassroots, progressive, radical wing of the Democratic Party, while Tallarico is the favorite of the Washington establishment Democrats. The latest independent poll on that side of the race showed Crockett with a 12-point lead. Now, the Tallarico campaign has released a survey showing him up by a couple of points. It's a close race, but a lot of folks think Crockett is the slight favorite. Now, let's talk about the Republican side. The incumbent is Senator John Cornyn, and he faces the sitting Attorney General Ken Paxton and Congressman Wesley Hunt in a primary, and the latest polling there shows a very close race that may well lead to a runoff if nobody gets above 50% of the vote. Joining us now to discuss the Texas Senate race and other issues is Senator John Cornyn of Texas. Senator Cornyn, welcome back to the Scott Jennings Show.
Great to be with you, Scott.
Thanks for spending some time with us today. I want to start this interview by playing a brand new television ad that you have released in this campaign attacking your opponent, Ken Paxton here. Let's take a listen to cut number 8.
It's voting time, so let's cut through the bullshit. Crooked Ken Paxton cheated on his wife. She's divorcing him on biblical grounds. So now Paxton's wrecking another home, sleeping around with a married mother of 7. And remember this, Crooked Ken has increased his net worth by as much as 7,000% since taking office. And his actions in office, even more troubling. Paxton gave millions of Texas tax dollars to left-wing organizations, including the Montrose Center that hosts drag queen shows and performs gender-affirming services to kids as young as 7. Now think of the Paxton dirty deeds we don't know about yet. The wife cheater and fraud, or the Texas workhorse. Senator John Cornyn is endorsed by the Border Patrol, and he voted with President Trump 99% of the time. Cornyn got the money to finish the damn wall. Texans know what to do.
I'm John Cornyn, and I approve this message. Join my team and give today.
One of the most blistering attack ads I have ever heard. How do you think Texans are going to respond to this message?
Well, it's all true, Scott. And, I've had a lot of my constituents in Texas say they can't believe this is actually a race. Given the baggage that Ken Paxton brings into this race, the chance that he would actually lose a red Senate seat in a state like Texas in the first crack in the red wall, and at very minimum would cost hundreds of millions of dollars to try to salvage him if were he the nominee. And chances are he would end up hurting the overall ticket, including the 5 new congressional seats that were drawn during redistricting. So I think I can help the president in his the last 2 years of his term of office. I think I can help the down ballot. And we spend money picking up Senate seats in Georgia, Michigan, and New Hampshire.
Is it your view that if Paxton is the nominee of the Republican Party, that it would become favored for the Democrats to win the Senate seat in Texas?
That's the only reason why Jasmine Crockett and James Tallarico are running, because they see a once in a, it's been since 1994 that we have not elected a Democrat statewide. So this would be the first chance. And I think the reason they are running is because they see this as an opportunity where Ken Paxton be the nominee. But of course, we're determined not to let that happen. But as you said, it's likely to be a runoff, and the race decided on May the 26th.
Let's talk about some issues in Washington, Senator Cornyn, including the Save America Act. There appears to be a little bit of news on this today. It doesn't feel like, based on what we're hearing, that there is enough support in the Senate Republican Conference to change the rules of the filibuster in the Senate to advance the Save America Act. Can you tell us anything about what you know today regarding the future of this legislation?
Well, in a normal world, which apparently we're not living in now, given the resistance to everything President Trump has proposed, or Republicans for that matter, requiring only American citizens to vote, and then requiring voter ID would be not controversial. You've seen the public opinion polls showing this is wildly popular, but similar to what happened during the State of the Union when the president challenged Democrats to stand up for law enforcement and against illegal immigration, they sat on their hands. And here I expect the Democrats to uniformly oppose this common sense measure that would actually protect the integrity of the ballot and make sure only American citizens are able to vote.
Are we going to see action on this on the Senate floor this week, you think? Next week? What's the timeline right now?
My guess is maybe next week. Senator Thune has been trying to figure out where the conference is. And as you know, there are 53 Republicans, and sometimes it's a little hard to herd cats and get everybody on the same page. I think pretty much everybody's on the same page in terms of the policy, but how we actually accomplish it has been debated. This so-called talking filibuster idea that hasn't been tried in a long time has some challenges in it. And of course, Senator Thune can only do so much. He could put it on the floor, but obviously he can't direct senators how to vote. So trying to convince senators about how the process would work and that it's likely to result in success has been part of the discussion, and that discussion goes on.
I know the calendar is also an issue because you're simultaneously dealing with the shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security. The Democrats voted to shut down DHS. That's something that has to get dealt with. What's the latest on chats with Democrats here? It seems like they're being rather unreasonable on DHS.
Well, I think they've taken the wrong hostage. You know, the hostage they took was TSA, the Transportation Security Agency that's responsible for security at the airports. Those folks are not going to be paid. The Federal Emergency Management Agency that deals with natural disasters and the like, and then also the Coast Guard. The fact is that in the One Big Beautiful Bill, the Working Family Tax Cuts Act, we funded ICE, we funded the Department of Homeland Security. So while the Democrats say they're doing this to try to control or pull back ICE and immigration enforcement, this is entirely the wrong way to do it, vehicle. They can't accomplish what they say they're trying to accomplish. So I don't know how much longer it's going to go on, but I think it's going to go on for a while longer at least.
If you're the nominee for Senate here for the November election, do you anticipate being illegal immigration, the Democratic position on ICE, which apparently is trending toward just abolish ICE and get rid of all immigration enforcement? Is this going to be the top issue for your campaign? It seems like in Texas it might be.
Yeah, I think, you called it exactly right. This is really an outgrowth of the defund police, abolish ICE movement that's been with us for a while, with the Democrats found out the hard way that that's not where America was in the 2024 election. And while obviously the tragedies that occurred in Minneapolis had multiple reasons, with Tom Homan in charge, I'm confident that these operations could go a lot smoother and de-escalate some of the potential for conflict and violence. I don't think the president can or should give up on enforcing the immigration laws. That's how he was elected in 2024. And I think the Democrats are on the wrong side of this issue because it's important we stand with our law enforcement. They're enforcing laws, as you know, Scott, that have been passed by the Congress and signed into law by the president. This is not discretionary on their part. They're doing their duty and doing the job we've asked them to do, and it's a dangerous job at that.
We're talking to Senator John Cornyn of Texas about the upcoming Senate race and key issues going on in Washington. Senator, continuing on here, discussion about illegal immigration issues. One of the things that has many Americans outraged right now, this idea that illegal aliens can obtain commercial driver's licenses, CDLs. We've seen a number of accidents on American roadways. People are dying because illegal aliens who can't read road signs, who can't speak English, who can't follow our laws are behind the wheel. Now, you have plans, I think, to introduce legislation that would bar illegal immigrants from getting these CDLs. The president talked about this in the State of the Union on Tuesday night. What can you tell us about that?
Well, taking a cue from the president, but this is really something that's been worked on in states like Texas. Governor Abbott's made clear that this would not be permissible, but as you know, in some blue states, they will issue driver's licenses, including commercial driver's licenses, to illegal aliens and people that can't read basic English, much less the road signs. And this can result in terrible tragedy and even death. The president highlighted this with the Delilah's situation, where thankfully she was saved, but she was horribly injured by an illegal alien who couldn't even read the road signs. And this bill is designed to codify that and to make sure that people can read the road signs and enhance public safety.
All right, Senator John Cornyn of Texas is our special guest. We've got about a minute left here, Senator. Talk quickly about energy. The president talked a little bit the other night about these AI data centers and possibly a plan where they would have to generate their own energy, kind of a pay-as-you-go plan for data centers. I assume this is to mollify or to assuage concerns of people about data centers driving up their own energy costs. Have you looked into this idea much, and any thoughts on it?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got some very large data centers being built in Texas, in the Abilene area out in West Texas, and up in Amarillo in North Texas. And concerns are that this might drive up utility bills, particularly electricity bills, because they would require huge amounts of electricity, but also water too, which is a concern. So what the president recommended, which I think makes good sense, is that these data centers need an independent and separate energy source so that they can provide for their own resources, and it won't harm consumers by raising electricity prices. So I know a number of AI companies, including, a number of them have already do this as a matter of course, but I think this has become a requirement now, and I think what the president proposes made good sense.
That voice you're hearing today, Senator John Cornyn of Texas. There's a big Senate race going on in Texas. Election day for the primary is coming up on March the 3rd, and then if there is a runoff in the primary, that would happen in May. Senator Cornyn, thanks for your time today.
Right.
Appreciate your insights.
Yep. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, sir. All right, we're going to take a break. First, a quick word from our friends at Done with Debt. And many of you may be stressed about getting out of debt. If you are, you need to listen to me. Done with Debt is one of the best organizations that we have ever seen at navigating debt relief. In fact, last year they did over $100 million for our listeners and other customers in helping them get debt relief that put their life, their financial life, back on track. Done with Debt helps you through the debt relief process. The goal here is for you to keep more of your paycheck every month. Imagine if you're in a debt crisis, imagine waking up every day with that weight off your shoulders, with that relief, and doing it without taking out another loan or filing for bankruptcy. That would be quite a relief. So my advice, don't wait. Visit donewithdebt.com. Do it now. Talk with a debt specialist. It is free to talk to them, and it takes only a few minutes. Go visit our friends at donewithdebt.com. They're great, and they absolutely can help you. More breaking news when we come back. It's Scott Jennings here on Salem. Stay with us.
Fighting the left with the best weapon we have, common sense. This is the Scott Jennings Show.
Home stretch here on Thursday, February 26th. Scott Jennings here on Salem. Common sense for the American people. Great show today. Thanks to all the guests who made time for us here on the show. In fact, one of them was Anna Kelly, Deputy White House Press Secretary. Earlier in the show, we talked with Anna about many of the incredible and powerful personal stories that President Trump highlighted during the State of the Union. I wanted to close the show today talking about one of those individuals who was honored. I was blown away by this story. On Tuesday night, America was reminded of something very powerful, something that's easy to forget in a noisy and divided world, and that is real heroism still exists. Chief Warrant Officer 5, Eric Slover, stood before the nation and received the Medal of Honor, the highest military honor that our country can bestow, and he earned it the hard way. Let's talk about his story. During Operation Absolute Resolve, this was the capture of the Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro, Slover was piloting a CH-47 Chinook helicopter as the lead aircraft of the operation that was tasked with executing a highly complex infiltration through hostile integrated air defense systems to safely deliver military forces. This guy's flying a chopper in under hostile fire. He's got to get our guys in place and in position to capture Maduro. This was his job. Upon touching down at the designated landing zone, Slover's aircraft was immediately engaged by multiple machine guns, all at very close range. This attack resulted in 15 armor-piercing rounds entering the cockpit, and 4 rounds struck Slover in the leg. 4 gunshot wounds to the leg as he sits in the cockpit of this helicopter, in that moment, wounded and under direct enemy fire, what would he do? Could he pull away and save himself? Maybe. That was one choice. But he did something different. Slover stayed at the controls, despite his injuries, despite the danger, despite being under heavy enemy fire, despite knowing that every second in that cockpit made him a target. Slover maintained control of the aircraft. He stabilized the helicopter. He continued the mission, and he ensured that the American soldiers that were depending on him could get out of Venezuela safely. After the force disembarked, and despite his significant injuries that were life-threatening, by the way, Chief Warrant Officer 5 Slover identified hostile heavy machine gun positions that were engaging his aircraft and targeting the ground forces, and then he maneuvered his aircraft to enable the door gunner to effectively deliver fire and neutralize the threat. So he's injured. He's got gunshot wounds to the leg. He maneuvers his helicopter and puts his gunner in a position to take out the military, or to take out, rather, the machine gun positions of the enemy. It is absolutely remarkable. He kept flying. He kept leading. He kept fighting through this pain. He's bleeding profusely, and he brings home his crew and his passengers alive. Remember, not a single American lost their life in this mission. This is real courage. It's selflessness. I was so blown away by this story because, to me, Slover, this is America at its best. The Medal of Honor represents valor above and beyond the call of duty. It represents the rare few who run toward danger instead of running away from it. Slover embodies that in every way. And Chief Warrant Officer 5, Eric Slover, I think, represents the very best of Norwich University. He's now the 10th Norwich alumni to receive the nation's highest military decoration. That's a small Vermont campus. They're not just educating the students there. Apparently, they're shaping America's heroes. So our hats off to Mr. Slover. We saw you get the Medal of Honor at the State of the Union. This guy is a certified American hero. And by the way, you look at the patches and decorations on his uniform, this guy has seen a lot of action. This man protects America. He protects American freedom. He protects every single one of us. If you ever see this man in a bar, just turn your credit card over to the bartender and say, anything he wants, it's on me. That's what you should do for Eric Slover. That's going to wrap up the show today. We'll be back tomorrow, broadcasting live from Memphis, Tennessee. It's Common Sense for the American People. Scott Jennings signing off. See you Friday.
Common sense for the American people. This is the Scott Jennings Show.